Well, John, perhaps we can ask you, 36 years ago, where did you think we would be in space today?
Well, Walter, I had hoped we'd be where we are today, except I had hoped that the space station would come along a little bit faster than it has, but it's going to get here one of these days. Incidentally, before time gets away from us here, I want to wish you a very happy birthday. I understand that's your birthday, Walter. Is that correct?
Well, thank you very much. I didn't expect birthday greetings from outer space or inner space.
You got them from outer space, I'll tell you. No, I think we've, the shuttle, the Discovery here, one of these days will be used as what it was originally designed for, was a shuttle to carry people and equipment back and forth to a permanently orbiting space station. And that's where the science will get even better than it is with the 2-week limitation you have with this vehicle.
Are you disappointed that we're not further along in space exploration?
Oh, I always wish we were further along than we are, but, we have a lot of demands on our budget, things like that, and I wish we were putting more money into it because I think it's so valuable. This country got to be what it is because we put money into research and exploration, and we didn't try and solve every problem before we moved off the East Coast. If we had, we'd still be there. But we've made tremendous strides with science, and this, of course, is out on the cutting edge of science with benefits for everybody right there in their homes all across the country and right there in Houston.
And, John, where do you think we might be 36 years from now?
Oh, that's a good one. That really opens it up to speculation. I would presume we will have tried a Mars mission by that time, probably be on Mars. Maybe we'll have put another station back on the moon. I would hope that we'd have a lot of experience and new results out of the space station by that time. Maybe we'll have moved on to a different type space station by that time. There's so many areas you could get into that I think it's almost impossible to tell. But there's just no limit to what we can do.
Well, I have a fellow sitting here beside me who probably knows more about that than you fellows out there do, or that we do back here, headquarters area. He certainly knows about those budget restraints you're talking about. Dan Golden, the administrator of NASA, and your boss on this flight. Dan?
Hello, John. How you doing?
Doing great, Dan. Really enjoying this up here, and we're getting a lot of good work done, too. And I hope you followed all that yesterday when Steve and Robinson on the arm and Kurt, of course, maneuvering the Discovery, did such a fantastic job of bringing Spartan back into the bay. I was back and looking out the top of Space Hab when that was going on, and I guess I was really closer to Spartan than they were up on the back of the flight deck. And it was just some sight there. I was within about 15 feet of it when the arm grappled it and started bringing it back in. It was just a fantastic sight.
Well, before I ask you a few questions, I have a few messages. First from Annie, ain't going up again. Secondly, you caused trouble with my mother. Last night, my 86-year-old mother called me up, and she wanted to know when she was going into space. And if you think you're tenacious, I don't know how I'm going to tell her no.
Well, good for her. I'm glad she has that kind of attitude. I think too many people, when they get old, think they have to live by the calendar and decide everything of being a couch potato or whatever, just because the calendar builds up so many years. I think people should be doing what they want to do and they feel they can do and try and do everything they can. So I admire her spirit. That's great.
You and I talked about the science that you were going to be doing. Now that you're up in space, what's your view of some of the muscle atrophy experiments, the immune suppression experiments that you're going to be participating in?
Well, already participating in those. We've taken the alanine and all that, taken blood samples. I guess I've given 7 or 8 blood samples by this time. And the sleep experiments, we've done 2 nights on that. You may notice this little box I'm wearing around my middle. I'm being monitored on a whole bunch of things right now, and body core temperature among them. And so we'll be giving the last 2 sleep experiments tonight. And I hope we get good data for this because, as you and I have discussed, those 34 million Americans that are over 65, I hope we can bring back some information that starts inquiry into their areas that will benefit all of them. That figure is due to go up to 100 million by the year 2050. So I think there's a lot to be learned out here, and I hope that this is just out on the cutting edge of starting what will be a new area of research for NASA.
You know, there are many young children that have been just struck alive with this mission. And in addition to the excitement of the mission, do you want to talk a little bit to them about what math and science might do for their lives and why it's important in their lives?
Well, I'd be glad to, because, I mentioned a moment ago, this country got to where it is because I think we've had more of the idea of discovery, of looking into the unknown. We've been a questing, curious people that always wanted to move west when we were still on the ground. We moved into the air. We moved into space. The young people today have such tremendous opportunities that weren't there 50 or 60 or 70 years ago. And they have to realize that, and they can build any kind of world they want to make. But it's up to them to get a good education, stay in school. I particularly hope they stay in math and science because that is so fundamental to so many other things. And that's where NASA's leading the way on this. We have 83 different research projects on board here. And I've been glad to see the kids so interested in Space Camp and coming down to Space Center Houston and doing things like that where they really get a kick out of it and enjoy particularly the interactive things that they can learn. So I just encourage every young person to take a big interest because in space here there's going to be a continuing and a growing effort of research that's going to benefit every kid throughout their whole life.
You know, I was very, very pleased to see that when you went up into space, you didn't suffer some of the pains and strains of rookies that go on the shuttle, especially with a number of problems some of them have experienced. Could you talk a little bit about your adaptation to space? Because this is one of the areas we're looking at. As astronauts go into space, they begin to feel and sense the kind of things that happen to adults when they age, only at a more rapid pace. And the wonderful thing about space is when you come back, everything goes back to where it was in the beginning, and that's one of the things we're trying to find out about this mission.
Well, that's right, and you were very glad to see I wasn't sick, and I can tell you, you weren't half as glad as I was, because I haven't never felt better up here. I've gone through the fluid shifts to the head, and we probably look a little round-faced to you today, but that's quite normal, and people have experienced a lot of that, experienced that on every mission. But I was very glad I didn't have any upset stomach or anything like that, and that we just went right to work after we got up here. So that part of it, we got by okay. What was the second part of your question there?
When you go up into space, you experience these debilitating effects that parallel aging. When astronauts come back, young, healthy astronauts, these debilitating effects become reversible, and they go back to the situation they had when they left the ground. One of the things we're all going to be interested in is what happens to you when you come back and see how much reversal occurs. Maybe you'll have a full head of hair.
That'd be something. Maybe you just have to put me up on another mission, whether Annie wants it or not, so I can grow more hair. I don't know. That is the reason I'm up here, though. You touched on that, and there are things that happen. There's some 53 changes occur in the astronauts' bodies when they're up here, the younger people. Now, they go back to normal when they return to Earth. Now, it happens that about 8 or 10 of those are things that are part of the natural process of aging on Earth. And that's the reason I'm up here, is to see if we can't learn more or start the inquiry and to learn more about what turns the human body on and off in these particular areas, so we maybe in this future can get away from things like cardiovascular problems or immune system changes or osteoporosis, balance, coordination problems, things like that plague older people on the ground and plague the younger astronauts sometimes for a period when they're up here in space. But if we can use these comparisons to learn what turns the body on and off in these particular areas, then perhaps we can someday not only help the astronauts up here on longer missions, sometime to Mars or wherever, but also maybe take away some of the frailties of old age right there on Earth. And if that can come out of some of these opening experiments right now, that's a great area of research for the space program for the future.